philanthropy really is a journey. And so, yes, in my experience, a lot have started out as checkbook philanthropists. So they'll respond to mail that they receive, or these are long-standing organizations that they have somehow been involved with. And the beauty of it is just watching them transform. So some of the strategies I did was something as simple as engaging them in site visits and really immersing myself into the community, and not only learning about the nonprofit organizations, but learning about the trends in those specific areas. So trends in foster youth, what is happening, and where can funders have the most impact. So really, this has never been a career for me. It's a life passion. I really love getting involved and having relationships and having an understanding of where we can have the most impact in our communities. And so just kind of watching that evolution, it could be as something as engaging them in site visits. With one family, they were busy. They didn't have time to go on site visits, but at every board meeting, I would share everything I learned. And then they would get excited. Then eventually they would go on site visits. Or another example is a nonprofit wanted to honor the family foundation, and the patriarchs were not available to attend this event and represent the foundation. And so I suggested to them that they have their grandson attend and accept the award. And he was in high school at the time. And it was just such a beautiful experience. I videotaped him. I sent them photos, both to the grandparents and the parents. And that's really kind of where the ball starts rolling. And just as we talk about a lot about foundations having trust-based philanthropy, it needs to be internally and externally as well. And so having faith and trust in your kids, your grandkids to carry this over. And a lot of that is training and getting them involved in philanthropy, whether it's volunteering at an organization. And we'll touch upon this later of specific different strategies, but just seeing that evolution is really rewarding.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm sure that high schooler was so proud on behalf of his family to stand up there and receive that award. And you mentioned something about trust-based philanthropy. And I know that we've seen a shift in this, especially when it comes to like the Mackenzie Scotts of the world who have implemented less rigorous application processes to um, get funding to grassroots organizations. And so what does trust-based philanthropy look like within the foundations that you've worked with?
It really is having trust in the nonprofits to carry out the work because they know what needs to be done. They're servicing disadvantage in the community and they know what the needs are. And so really for me, and again, this is my early roots in my career, is I've always been an advocate of general operating support. So that's how I started my career, was raising money for general operating support, areas of the greatest need. And because that has been ingrained in me, that's what I advise family foundations to do, is really have those conversations with the nonprofits and really have a keen understanding of where the needs are and where they could have the greatest impact. Sometimes when there are foundations that are very interested in funding programmatic support, and that's great. And a lot of them like that because they can see the immediate impact. But then it's going to the nonprofit and saying, okay, what is a program where either you're losing funding or you want to start a pilot, and then funding that area of which the nonprofit identified.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And when we're talking about the nonprofit side, because I know that you have sat on both sides, and obviously as a fundraiser, I've worked on the fundraising side with building relationships and trust with family foundations. And for our listeners who are a lot of, CEOs and founders, how can nonprofits best build those relationships and exemplify that trust to family foundations?
That's a great question, and I touched upon this at the AFP panel I served on perspectives of philanthropy a few years ago, but the more that nonprofits can engage the family, so not necessarily just the donors, but having activities where the family can either come and volunteer or attend some of the programming and lectures, that's really how they can build relationships with subsequent generations. And also being open to, and I've found this happen a lot where um, a wealthy individual or a foundation, they have a son or daughter and they're looking for an internship. And I've personally helped make those matches to the nonprofits of what that student was interested in. So one that I worked with was interested in environmental. And so I introduced them to the Ocean Institute. And really, you can gain a lot of experience working for a nonprofit. It doesn't necessarily have to be fundraising, but it could be marketing, communications, and leadership skills, anything to kind of build the skill sets and have a different experience. Because my real passion is, as we're looking at the wealth transfer kit, the subsequent generations and family foundations, they need to be prepared for that. So how to best be prepared than that is to have an introduction to nonprofits and what nonprofits face, because you and I both know it's very challenging work. And there's always challenging times with nonprofits and different flows of revenue sources. So the more that you can build your individual base and look at people as individuals and families and create opportunities for those, the more successful you'll be in the long run.